Level 1. The newly arrived. You are at the bottom of a system that has not yet decided what to do with you. You arrived in the hold of a ship. You cannot describe what those weeks were like. Language does not reach it. People died beside you in the dark, chained at the ankle, lying in their own filth. In the space between decks so narrow you could not sit upright. You arrived in Charlestown or Savannah or Newport malnourished and terrified, with a name that is already being taken from you. The auctioneer does not call you by your name. He calls you by a number. The man who buys you calls you whatever he wants. Now begins what the planters call seasoning. This is not a metaphor. It is a documented, deliberate process. Written about in agricultural manuals the way a farmer writes about breaking a new horse. Seasoning means forcing your body to acclimate to a new climate, new food, new disease, new labor rhythms, new psychology of subordination. It means learning in real time under threat of violence how to survive inside a system designed to extract everything from you, while giving you as little as possible in return. Mortality rates during seasoning can reach 30%. 1 in 3 new arrivals does not survive the first year. You are not told this. You find out by watching. Your first real job is to watch. You watch how the other enslaved people move. Not too slow, which draws the lash, and not too fast, which raises the quota for everyone. You are learning 2 languages at once, the new tongue spoken around you and the silent language of the plantation itself. What does a shift in the overseer's posture mean? What does it mean when the driver starts moving through the rows faster than usual? What tone of voice signals danger? What does safety, temporary, conditional, fragile look like in this place? You have nothing. No territory, no position, no protection. You do not yet understand that there is a hierarchy among the enslaved, that the man driving the gang outranks you in every practical sense, that the woman cooking in the big house has privileges you cannot imagine from where you stand at the edge of the field. You only know the immediate, the weight of the hoe, the heat, the quota. The eyes that watch you without stopping. They might treat you if you get sick, not out of mercy, but because you cost money and a dead investment is a total loss. If you try to run, and some do, the search is organized. The punishment is public, and the spectacle of it is the point. Every person watching in the yard absorbs the lesson. How do you get to the next level? You find one person who knows how this place works, and you make yourself indispensable to them. You watch. You learn the rhythms. You stay alive until the system assigns you a role inside itself. That assignment is coming, and where you land determines everything. Level 2. The field hand. You have been sorted. They looked at your body, your build, your age, your apparent strength, and they put you in the fields. This is where most enslaved people spend their entire lives. There is no shame in saying that plainly. The field is the economic engine of the plantation. Everything else, the house, the cookery, the stables, the elaborate social architecture of the planter class, runs on what you produce here. You are the foundation of a world that does not acknowledge you as part of it. You work in a gang. The gang system means you move together, work together, and stop when you are allowed to stop. In South Carolina and Georgia, some planters use the task system. You're given a specific daily quota, and if you finish it, you have a small window of time that is almost yours. The gang system has no such boundary. You work from can see to can't see, from first gray light to full dark. Your crop determines your calendar and your body. In Virginia and Maryland, you grow tobacco. You know this plant better than you know most people. You know how to top it. Snap the flower heads before they open so the leaves grow thicker. You know how to worm it. Walking the rows in the early morning, picking tobacco hornworms off the leaves by hand, one by one. You know the drying barns, the precise management of the curing fires, the hogsheads that ship the finished leaf north. In the South Carolina low country, it is rice or indigo. The rice fields are flooded, mosquito-ridden, and disease-soaked. Malaria is not a risk here, it is an expectation. You work in stand-in water, your legs carry it. In the deep south it is cotton, and the cotton bolls split open at the edges sharp as wire. Your hands are never fully healed. The quota grows every year. Your day begins before dawn. You cook what you have, cornmeal mostly, whatever you can grow in the small plot they allow you. Scraps of meat in a good week. Then you work. A break at midday, brief, in whatever shade can be found. Then you work until the light is gone. At night, you mend tools, tend your plot, care for your family. If your family has not yet been sold from you, that is the word you carry with you always. Sold. Not the overseer, not the quota, not the heat. Though all of these are real. The terror that runs under everything else is the sale. On any given morning, you can wake up knowing that by nightfall, your husband, your child, your mother could be gone. Not dead, gone. Sold south, sold east, sold to wherever the market has decided to move them. You will receive no warning, you will have no legal recourse. The threat of sale is a management instrument. It is used deliberately. You behave or someone you love disappears. You survive by building a world inside the world they allow you. The Praise House on Sunday. The stories told in the quarters after dark. The gardens, the music, the kinship networks that do not appear in any ledger but are the architecture of your life. The information you pass between each other, about the overseer, about conditions on neighboring plantations, about what is happening in the wider colony, moves faster than the planter imagines. How do you move out of the fields? You develop a skill. You become useful in a way that is harder to replace than raw labor. Level 3. The indentured servant. You are not enslaved. This is the first thing you tell yourself when it gets hard, which is every day. You are English, or Irish, or German, or Scottish, and you arrived in the colonies with nothing, which meant you traded your labor for the price of your passage. You signed a contract, or someone signed it for you, or you were too desperate and too illiterate to read what you agreed to. The contract says 4 years, or 5, or 7. What the contract does not say is what those years will look like. Your master feeds you, houses you, and works you until your term is complete. The food is barely adequate. Cornmeal and salted pork, the same caloric calculation used for the enslaved. The housing is a shared sleeping space. You work alongside enslaved people doing identical labor, and the most concrete difference between your situation and theirs, in the practical arithmetic of a daily day, is that you have an end date. But end dates can be extended. Miss a week of work sick, and your master adds a week. Get caught trying to run, and your term doubles. The law was written by landowners for landowners. You occupy a strange social position. You are poor and white in a world that is in the middle of sorting itself by race with increasing legal precision. By the late 17th century, the colonial assemblies have begun constructing a racial architecture they are very deliberate about. After Bacon's rebellion in 1676, when poor white colonists and enslaved black people united against the planter class and burned Jamestown, the men at the top understood the danger clearly. multiracial coalition among the laboring poor is existential to their power. The solution is not to improve conditions. The solution is to divide the poor against themselves, so they give you things, not land, not wealth, but symbolic distance from the bottom. You can bear arms, you can testify in court against a black man. You can participate in the slave patrol, the organized system of white men riding the roads at night, checking passes, breaking up any gathering of enslaved people, returning runaways. They are building a wall between you and the man working beside you because the alternative, the two of you comparing notes about who benefits from the system, is the thing that keeps the planter awake at night. When your indenture ends, you receive freedom dues, a few barrels of corn, a set of tools, possibly a small parcel of land on the frontier. Far from the fertile coastal ground, the planter class has already locked up for generations. You are free. You are also broke, starting over with nothing, in a world where land equals power and every acre worth owning already has a name on it. You did not rise. You were released. There is a difference. Level 4. The skilled slave. You are a carpenter, or a blacksmith, a cooper making the barrels that ship the tobacco north, a bricklayer, a cobbler, a weaver, a pilot on the plantation's trading sloop who knows the coastal waterways better than any white man on board. You have a skill, and your skill has changed your position in ways that are real and never acknowledged. You were either trained deliberately, sent to learn a trade because your master identified the investment value early, or your aptitude made itself apparent and was exploited accordingly. Either way, you now perform work that requires knowledge and sustained judgment, not just endurance. The overseer cannot easily replace you by pointing at the next person in the field. That is your leverage. It is small leverage. In this system, small is everything. Your daily life looks different. You may work in a dedicated structure, the smithy, the carpenter's shop, the cooperative at the edge of the property. You may work with greater independence, less under the constant eye of the driver or the overseer. You may interact regularly with free men, merchants, tradesmen from the nearest town, in the normal course of your work. These interactions are information. You hear prices, you learn geography, you learn what is happening beyond the gates of this property in ways that the field hand cannot easily access. Some skilled enslaved people are hired out. The master sends you to work for a neighboring planter or a town merchant who pays your hire fee directly to your master, not to you. You see none of this money officially. In practice, some skilled men negotiate a small portion. They accumulate tips, take side jobs, build small sums over years in a system that legally forbids them from owning anything. The law says one thing. The practice, as always, is more complicated. The danger at this level is visibility. You are more visible than a field hand. You interact with more people. You move through more of the world. You hear more, and what you hear, absorb, and carry inside your head is precisely what the planter fears most. The most dangerous person in the colonial imagination is not the strongest man in the field. It is the literate, skilled, well-traveled man who has seen enough of the wider world to understand with perfect clarity what has been taken from him and who took it. If you are a blacksmith, you make the chains. You have hammered the iron that holds people. You know its weight in your hands. You know how it is made. You know, therefore, how it can be broken. Level 5. The driver, you are enslaved, and you are in charge of enslaved people. There is no position in the entire hierarchy, not among the free, not among the bound, that carries a more complex moral and psychological weight than the one you now occupy. The driver is the foreman of the field gang. The driver holds the whip. The driver sets the pace. The driver decides in 100 small moments every day whether a sick worker gets a lighter assignment or a hard one. You did not step into this role easily. No one hands this position to someone who hasn't been watched for years. The overseer recommended you. The planter approved you. They trust you not because they like you. The planter does not think about whether he likes you, but because you have demonstrated that you can be useful to them in this specific way. That is not a compliment. It is an assessment. What does your authority actually look like? You pace the gang. Too slow and the overseer reports your numbers and you lose the position. Too fast and you break people. Literally, bodies fail under sustained overwork. And you lose the hands the planter's crop depends on. You are the regulator. You are the buffer between the overseer's demands and the biological limits of human beings. When the overseer's drunk or absent, you run the field. When a hand is too sick to work but will be punished for not working, you decide whether to cover for them or report them. These decisions, made daily, in small moments that no one records, are the actual content of your character. The people in your gang watch you the way you once watched everyone above you. They are measuring your choices. They are deciding, with a precision born from absolute necessity, whether you are a collaborator or a protector. Knowing, all of them, that the line between those two things is a moving target, and that you walk it every single day without the luxury of stopping to think about it for very long. You have access that no other enslaved person in the field has. You can speak directly to the planner, report to him, deliver information he needs. You know the crop numbers. You understand the plantation's economics better than most enslaved people ever will. This information is power. It is also exposure. You know things that, in the wrong moment or the wrong ear, could end you. Your relationships in the quarters are fractured in ways you cannot repair. Some people respect you. Some people hate you with a precision that is entirely fair. Some people need you desperately and hate that they need you. You are not fully inside the community you came from. You are not outside it either. You walk between two worlds and belong completely to neither. And there is no resolution to this. There is only the next day. Level 6. The domestic servant you work in the big house. This sounds like an improvement. In certain material ways it is. You are not in the fields. The heat and the quota and the exposed labor of the gang system are not your daily reality. There is better food near the house and scraps from a table that serves actual meals, not the cornmeal calculation of the quarters. There is shelter that is closer, warmer, more protected. But proximity to power is not the same as safety. In some ways, it is the opposite. You are a lady's maid, a cook, a valet, a nursemaid, a personal attendant. You dress the mistress in the morning. You serve at table in the evening. You stand in the room during conversations that you are not supposed to retain. You watch this family from a distance of 3 feet, close enough to understand everything, far enough to remain powerless. The expectations in the house are different from the field in one important way. Field labor is brutal and impersonal. House service is intimate, and intimacy requires a different kind of self-erasure. You must be present without being a person. You must anticipate needs without being seen to think. You must read moods, manage reactions, absorb shocks, all while projecting a calm legibility that reassures the family that you are exactly what they need you to be. Visible when needed, invisible at all other times. The mistress of the house controls your daily existence in minute detail. She decides what you wear, when you sleep, who you may speak to, and for how long. Domestic servants often sleep on the floor of the room they serve, or in a small adjacent closet. There's no lock on your door because the concept of a door you can lock has not been extended to you. Children of the planter class are frequently raised by enslaved nurses. The attachment is real. Children love the person who feeds and holds them, who sings to them in the dark, who sits with them through fevers. Those children grow up and become people who own other people. The warmth of early childhood does not interrupt this. It never does. You watch children you have loved become people you have to fear, and there is no language adequate to what that does to a person over a lifetime. You know everything in this house. Every secret this family has is stored somewhere in your memory. You know the financial troubles, the marriage tensions, the affairs, the children born in circumstances that complicate the inheritance. You carry this knowledge carefully and you do not use it, because the use of it would destroy you faster than the secret itself could damage them. Your knowledge makes you necessary and therefore more closely controlled. It is not a weapon, it is a cage with better lighting. Level 7. The House Negro. You live inside the house, not adjacent to it. Not in a cabin at the edge of the yard, inside it. You sleep within earshot of the family. You eat what is left from their table. You wear clothes that are discarded from their wardrobe. Better than anything in the quarters, and everyone in the quarters knows it. This is the position that Malcolm X would describe 2 centuries from now in a speech that stops rooms. He would say the house Negro loved the master more than the master loved himself. He would say that when the master's house caught fire, the house Negro worked to put it out. When the master got sick, the house Negro said, "We sick." And people would hear that speech and argue about whether it was an indictment or a description. You are living inside the thing he was describing. And the truth of it is more complicated than either the accusation or the defense can hold. Here is how you got here. You were selected. Either you were born into it, the child of a woman who served in the house, raised in the rooms you now work, knowing no other world. Or you caught someone's eye through appearance, comportment, intelligence, or the kind of quiet usefulness that power always recognizes and absorbs. You may be lighter skinned than the field hands. This is not accidental. The sexual violence of this system produces children, and those children are often kept close rather than sent to the fields because proximity manages the evidence. You carry that history in your face and you carry it in silence. Your daily life is intimate in a way the field hand cannot imagine and would not want to. You dress the planter in the morning. You shave him. You stand behind his chair at meals. You travel with him when he goes to Williamsburg or Charlestown. You are present for conversations that no one intends for you to remember. You know the state of the family finances. You know which marriages are troubled. You know which men your master owes money to and which ones owe him. You know which of his political alliances are sincere and which are expedient. You are an archive of this family's private life, and the fact that you are an archive is something they manage by pretending you are furniture. But here is what makes this level distinct from simply working in the house. You have begun to think in the house's categories. Not fully, not completely, but partially, the way anyone begins to think in the categories of the world they live inside. When the harvest is good, something in you relaxes. When the planter's business goes badly, something in you tightens. You have material reasons for this. Your comfort is tied to his prosperity. But it goes beyond the material, and the people in the quarters can see it in you, and this is what they do not forgive. The field hand calls you a traitor. Sometimes they are right. Sometimes you carry information back to the house about gatherings in the quarters, about grumbling, about plans that have not yet become actions. Sometimes you do this because you are afraid. Sometimes because you believe genuinely that it is better for everyone to avoid the punishment that follows a discovered conspiracy. Sometimes because your interests and the master's interest have, through years of proximity, become genuinely tangled in your mind. You do not always know which of these is true when you speak. That uncertainty is what the system produced in you, and the system produced it on purpose. The field hand sees a collaborator. The planter sees a loyal servant. Neither of them sees you as a person making calculations inside an impossible set of options. But that is what you are. What can end you? The same things that end everyone else in this system, plus one additional risk. If the planter decides your loyalty is performance rather than reality, you lose everything your position provides. And if the community in the quarters decides you have gone too far, you lose them. You can lose both worlds in a single week. There is no ground beneath you that is fully solid. How do you move forward from here? You become so functionally indispensable that you acquire authority over everyone beneath you in the house. You become the manager of this domestic world. But to get there, you first have to reckon with what you have already become, and whether there is still a version of yourself beneath it. Level 8, the head house servant. You are at the top of the enslaved hierarchy on this plantation. Read that sentence carefully. It is not a compliment. It is a description of the most surveilled, most burdened, most politically exposed position available to someone who is not free. You manage the household staff. You oversee the domestic servants beneath you. You receive guests at the door, direct the silver polishing, manage the wine cellar, supervise the preparation for every formal dinner. You stand behind the planter's chair when important men come to call. You are the face the household presents to visitors, and therefore you are managed like a brand. The planter trusts you more than he trusts most free white men. This trust is built on your complete legibility to him. He must be able to read you at all times, predict your behavior, see through your expression to the operational function beneath it. The moment you become opaque to him, the trust shatters. The moment he cannot tell what you are thinking, you are a threat rather than an asset. You have spent years learning to make your face into a surface that reflects exactly what he needs to see. You manage simultaneously upward and downward. You translate the planter's expectations downward to the staff you oversee. You protect them where you can, covering a minor infraction, softening a report, timing information carefully, because they are your people and you are still among them. And you report what you must because your position is contingent on the planter's confidence. And the day that confidence breaks is the day everything you have built at this level collapses. This is not hypocrisy. Do not let anyone call it hypocrisy. It is the arithmetic of surviving inside a closed and violent system. Every choice you make has a cost attached to it. You have simply become very skilled at calculating cost. Your position comes with material advantages. Better clothing. You must represent the household well to visitors. More consistent food. A more private sleeping space sometimes. Some head house servants are taught to read because managing a complex household requires it. And the planter's need for functional management overrides his theoretical commitment to keeping you illiterate. Literacy in an enslaved person is illegal in many colonies. The planter needs you functional more than he needs the law enforced against his own property. Every person in the quarters knows who you are. They watch your choices the same way you watch everyone above you. The question they are asking, the question you ask yourself in the silence before first light, is where your loyalty actually lives. And the honest answer is that it lives in the gap between what the system demands of you and what you quietly do for the people you came from. Level 9. The Overseer. You are a free white man. You are also within the plantation's architecture, a hired hand, a professional who has sold his skills to someone who will never see him as a social equal. You come from the middling class. You are not poor enough to be disposable and not wealthy enough to own land that matters. You know agriculture. You know livestock management. You know how to supervise labor, which in this context means you know how to use fear as a management instrument and how to calibrate the application of it. You are paid in cash or tobacco. You get a house on the property, perhaps a horse, limited social standing in the county. The planter does not invite you to his table. You eat in your own quarters. You are staff, not family. Your job is to maximize output. The planter sets a crop target each year. Your job is to hit it. The tools available to you are the quota, the schedule, the threat, and the lash. You are legally authorized to inflict corporal punishment. This is not incidental to your role. It is the structural instrument of your authority. Without it, you have no mechanism of enforcement. The plantation's output depends on your willingness to use it, but you are being watched from both directions. The planter is watching your numbers, your crop yields, your management of the labor force, your efficiency. If your numbers slip, you are replaced. Average overseer tenure on a large plantation is 2 to 3 years. The work burns through men. And the enslaved people are watching you far more carefully than you watch them. They know when you are drunk. They know your patterns, your moods, your weaknesses, your boundaries. They know which of your threats you will follow through on and which are performance. They know when to slow the pace, when to fake illness convincingly, when to break a tool in a way that looks accidental. Information flows in this system and not always toward power. Overseers are frequently blamed for the violence of the plantation system in ways that allow planters to maintain a self-image of civilized paternalism. The planter can shake his head at cruelty, while his crop targets make cruelty structurally inevitable. You are his insulation. You are the mechanism through which the violence flows, while he keeps his hands clean enough for Sunday church and his letters to London. When something goes wrong on the property, a death, a rebellion, a scandal, you are the answer that protects him from the question, what does this job do to you over the years? It makes you someone who administers suffering daily and must construct and continually reinforce a worldview in which that is acceptable. You build that worldview carefully, the way you would build any structure you need to stand up under pressure. You build it and you live in it, and eventually you stop being able to see outside it. Level 10. The factor. The merchant middleman. You are not on the plantation. You are in the city. Charlestown, Annapolis, Williamsburg, Newport. You are the man who connects the plantation to the market. You are the factor. The planter ships his tobacco or rice or indigo to you. You sell it on his behalf in the Colonial market and arrange its shipment to London or Bristol. You take your commission, typically 2.5% of the sale, sometimes more for ancillary services. You are also his banker, his purchasing agent, his intelligence source, his link to the financial and political world the plantation cannot directly access. You arrange his credit when the crop is late. You buy the luxury goods his wife orders from England, the silk, the silver service, the mahogany furniture, the books, the painted portraits that signal to every visitor that this is a house of consequence. You know the planter's finances more intimately than his wife does. You know when he is solvent and when he is leveraged against future crops he has not yet grown. You know, because you can see this across your entire book of clients, that many of the great planter families, the ones who will one day have counties and universities named after them, are permanently and structurally indebted. The lifestyle of the planter class is financed on credit against crops that are always one bad season away from catastrophe. The plantation that looks like permanence from the outside is in your ledgers a rolling gamble. The enslaved people pass through your hands too. You conduct the auctions, you assess bodies on the dock, you write the descriptions in the ledgers, height, estimated age, visible markings, skills noted, defects noted. In the same professional tone and format used for livestock inventories. You do not construct a separate moral framework for this because the moral framework has already been built for you by law, custom, the church, the colonial government, and the accumulated agreement of every powerful man you have ever done business with. You work within a system that preceded you and will outlast you. This is how most people in most systems justify their participation. Your position provides something genuinely valuable in this world. Information advantage. You know commodity prices before the planters do. You know which crops are running strong across the colony and which are failing. You know which planter is overextended and approaching a forced sale of land or people. This information, carefully managed, is its own form of currency. You are respectable in the city. You sit on the Colonial Council. You attend the right church. Your children marry well. You are building something that, if you are disciplined and careful, might look like a dynasty by the time your grandchildren inherit it. Level 11. The Planter's Wife. You are consistently left out of the hierarchy because the law considers you an extension of your husband. This is a fiction that everyone maintains, including you. And yet, you are the person who actually runs this plantation at the level where it is most complex. The domestic management of a large plantation is not housekeeping. It is industrial operations. Cloth is woven in this house. Food is preserved here across seasons. The medical treatment of illness among the family and among the enslaved population, because your husband's investment in human property requires some baseline of medical management, falls to you. You maintain the household accounts. You direct the domestic staff. You make daily decisions about discipline, reward, privilege, and punishment that affect the lives of dozens of people in immediate and lasting ways. Your relationship with the enslaved women who work alongside you is the most complicated relationship in your life, and it is one that almost no one who writes about this period examines honestly. You depend on these women, absolutely, for the running of the house, for the raising of your children, for the labor your social position requires. They know this. You hold power over their bodies, their families, their daily existence. They know this too. Both things are true simultaneously in every interaction, every day. The warmth is real. The power differential is also real. They coexist without resolution for as long as this system lasts. Your own freedom is narrower than your position suggests. The property is legally your husband's. The decisions are his. Your legal personhood is subsumed into his under the doctrine of coverture. You cannot own property independently, sign a contract, or initiate litigation. If he dies, you are at the mercy of his will and the goodwill of his male relatives. Your power over everyone below you on this plantation is nearly absolute. Your power over your own life is nearly none. You write letters, you receive visitors, you manage the social calendar, which is also a political calendar. Because the plantation house functions as a node of alliance, debt, information, and influence in the colonial network. And you are the architect of that function. Your dinner table is strategic. The guest list is a statement. Which families you receive and which you find reasons to decline is information that the whole county reads and interprets. You watch things you are not supposed to see. You know things you are not supposed to know. You maintain the surfaces that allow everything else to continue. History will spend a long time deciding what responsibility looks like for someone who has power over some and none over herself. And it will not reach a clean answer. Level 12. The Colonial Assemblyman. You are not just a planter, you are a legislator. You sit in the House of Burgesses in Virginia, or the Commons House of Assembly in South Carolina, or the General Assembly of Maryland. You are the man who writes the laws that govern everything you have read about in these pages. The slave codes did not emerge from the air. They were written in rooms, by men with names. The Virginia Slave Code of 1705, the South Carolina Negro Act of 1740. These documents, which stripped enslaved people of legal personhood, define them as property that could be bought, sold, mortgaged, inherited, and destroyed, criminalized literacy and independent movement and assembly, were drafted in legislative sessions by men who wore fine coats and argued about commerce and order and the future of the colony. They knew what they were doing. These were not ignorant men acting from confusion. They were intelligent men constructing a legal architecture designed to serve their economic interests and their need for social control. You understand, because you are a practical man, that slavery at this scale cannot be maintained by individual planters acting alone. It requires infrastructure. It requires a unified system of law, enforcement, and ideology that extends across the whole colony. The slave patrol system, the organized bands of white men riding the roads at night, checking travel passes, returning runaways, dispersing any gathering of enslaved people without a white witness, is funded and organized by the colonial government. You vote for that appropriation. You write the legislation that makes resistance a crime and the patrol a legal institution. You also understand the problem of poor white men, and you have a solution to it. You extend them just enough privilege, the right to serve on patrols, the right to testify in court against black men, the symbolic weight of whiteness as a legal category, to give them a stake in the system's maintenance rather than its destruction. This is a documented, deliberate policy. The men who designed it wrote about it. It is not a conspiracy theory, it is colonial governance. You speak about liberty. You have read Locke. You have read the natural rights philosophers. Some of you will, within a generation, sign a document declaring that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with unalienable rights. You will mean something specific by men, and everyone in that room will know exactly what you mean, and no one will say it aloud. This will not be resolved by the founding documents. It will be left for later generations to argue over in terms that grow more sophisticated but not necessarily more honest. You are the man who makes this legal. That is your specific contribution to history. Level 13. The Planter. You have arrived. You are the patriarch at the top of the most profitable economic system in the colonial Americas. You own land, thousands of acres in some cases, land whose fertility was built by the labor of people you also own. You own the product of other bodies, the years of other lives. By the standards of the world you live in, you are considered a great man. Understand how you got here. You inherited this, or you married into it, or you received land grants dispensed by a crown that claimed ownership of a continent it had never mapped. The myth of the self-made planter is mostly myth. What you built on a foundation of prior violence that you did not invent and do not examine. You extended it. You refined it. You institutionalized it. But you did not begin it, and this is a fact you find useful. Your public life is that of a gentleman. You hunt, you ride, you host dinners that last 4 hours. You sit on the vestry of your parish church and the bench of the county court. You serve in the militia. You speak of your people, a word you apply to the enslaved workforce without apparent awareness of what it cost them to hear it from your mouth. You describe your management of the plantation in the language of paternal stewardship, of responsibility, of obligation. Your letters to London describe the burden of it. The agricultural manuals you read discuss the maximizing of human labor in the vocabulary of livestock management. You do not notice the contradiction because the contradiction has been made invisible by the world you grew up in. Your private life is more complicated. The plantation house is not peaceful. It is a pressure vessel. The man who lies awake at 3 in the morning is not worrying only about crop prices. He knows what he has built. He knows that 200 people on this property know the roads, know where the weapons are stored, know the geography of every mile between here and the nearest free territory. He knows about Gabriel Prosser's conspiracy in 1800, about Denmark Vesey in 1822, about the constant low-level resistance that never stops, the calculated slowdowns, the feigned illness at precise moments, the tools broken in ways that look accidental, the small fires, the information networks the enslaved maintain that his patrols consistently underestimate. He knows that what he calls order is maintained by the continuous application of terror and the daily renewal of the threat of violence. He knows it is not stable. He has always known it is not stable. He maintains it anyway. He knows something else, something he does not write down and rarely says aloud even to himself. The system requires his children to inherit not just the property, but the psychology. He is not only building a plantation, he is building a person. He is teaching his sons that dominion over other human beings is natural, that the man in the field is a different category of being. From the man at the table, that power of this kind is a birthright and its exercise is not cruelty but management. This is a lesson that will take generations to undo. There are scholars who would argue it has not been fully undone yet. You sit at the head of the table, the silver is polished, the candles are lit. The food was grown and cooked and carried to this room by people who will not eat it. The conversation tonight is about liberty, about natural rights, about the tyranny of distant government, about what it means for a man to be free. You are the most powerful man in this room. You have no peace. You will die having built something that future generations will call both magnificent and monstrous, depending on which part of it they're looking at, and you will have left them no clean way to separate the two. There is no walking away from this. You do not retire. You pass it on. And someone else inherits the problem of what to do with what you built. This is the life you were assigned, all of it, every level, every rung, every carefully calibrated position, in a system that was never accidental. The plantation did not happen by default. It was constructed deliberately, Bassiani, by legislation, by violence, by the slow accumulation of legal precedent, and cultural mythology designed to make an arrangement of breathtaking cruelty appear natural. The people at the bottom did not end up there because the world had no other option for them. They were placed there by specific decisions made by specific men, written into specific laws, enforced by specific instruments of state power. And the people who did the placing, who sat in the assemblies, who signed the codes, who wrote the manuals and collected the commissions and set the crop quotas. They knew what they were doing. The record is clear. They were not confused. They made choices. Every system has ranks. Every hierarchy has rules. The important question, the one this system spent 2 centuries trying to make unanswerable, is not who holds which position. It is who designed the system in the first place and whose interests it was built to serve. Now you know.